Alright, let's begin. So to quickly cover the things I didn't do properly last week, we have the visualize Bsphere commands now being properly implemented. So we have a command pool. If it's empty, then we create a new one. Otherwise, we take from the front and pop that off the pool since it's being used. And once we take it, we initialize using the given sphere's center and radius, as well as the given color, and we pass in the wireframe sphere. After that, we push it onto our command queue. When it's time to visualize, we go through all of our visualization commands and do the associated visualize. So for the Bspheres, that means that we set the world based off of the radii and the center, set the color, render the graphics object, and then return the command through an attorney to put it back in the pool. Other than that, let's begin. So for this week's assignment, we had to do sprites. So as you can see here, we got Stitch rendering in front of everything. So if I were to swap scenes, we now have 3 of the default textures that once again is being rendered in front of everything before we swap back to Stitch. No leaks. So there are 2 ways to make the sprite. One is not clarifying anything, which uses the default image. Default image uses that hot pink default texture that you provided. It sets the positions to 0 and the scale factor to 1. If they specify an image, then we have to try and get it. So our image manager uses the proper get and load safeguards that all the other managers use with all the asserts to make sure they don't double insert or don't try and insert something that can't be properly inserted. When they do clarify which image they want, rather than 0, 0, we take the rectangles X and Y and set that to be the default position. For setting the angle, they can either do it with radians, or I also added an option to set it in degrees. For setting the origin, it's percentage based. So if they say 0.5, 0.5, which would be the center of the object, gets 50% of the width and 50% of the height. Scaling by factor versus by pixel. By factor, we just take the X and Y and multiply the width and height by them. By pixel, we take the given width and height pixel counts and divide them by the origin width and heights. For setting the position, we take the X and Y's and add them by the origin offsets. And then when it comes time to update the world, we subtract those origin offsets by our X and Y's. We rotate the angle, and then we do the scale factor X and Y. Compute the world matrix, set the world, and then render everything. And the last thing to show for this is in the process elements of draw. All the drawing in 3D space happens, and then all the draw in 2D space happens. For the tank demo, this week I added in the life system. So as you can see, we have the purple tanks that track the player. When they shoot the player, eventually we end up losing a life. When we run out of lives, it will go to the game over screen. So just one more. All the players trying to track all of them trying to track the player. And once they do that, we have our game over screen. Pressing the R key brings you back to the title where you can try everything again. No leaks. So for coding the life system, we have a single sprite that represents a heart in the player. When it's time to draw it, we take the current life count of the player and draw that many lives with a offset factor and then rendering it. For the blue tank, now whenever the blue tank gets hit by the bullet, it will damage the player, and if the player's lives is set to 0, it brings us to the game over screen. And I was not able to start the documentation this week. I'll have to try and start that this weekend. And that's it.